Hi everyone, it's Christine here from Christine's Stampin' Spot. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today I have a super simple but I think super sweet card to share with you. I just had to ink up the Spirited Snowmen stamp set again from Stampin' Up! This is new, just came out in the holiday catalog. We're also going to be using this buffalo check background stamp, which also just came out in the holiday catalog. And it is amazing. It is definitely a must-have in my opinion. And this is the sweet little card we're going to be creating today. So I'm going to show you how to get a nice, well-inked background image, and then we're going to do a little bit of coloring with our Stampin' Blends on our little snowman, and then we'll just put the card together. As you can see, it's a very simple layout on the card, super simple and sweet, but really fun. And so we're going to go ahead and put this card together. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and color our snowman really quick. So I already went ahead and stamped him with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. Remember, when you're working with alcohol markers, which are Stampin' Right markers are alcohol markers, you want to be using the Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I stamped him on thick Whisper White cardstock, which I prefer for blending. I just feel that I get better results when I blend with the markers on the thick Whisper White cardstock. So I went ahead and already cut him out also with a stitched circle die. This is from our Stitched Shapes Framelit die set. You get 4 of each shape, and you get circle, oval, square. Yeah, that's it, 3 shapes. It's a great little die set to have. I use it on almost every card, and I always am using it in my classes when I pre-cut things for you guys. So we're going to go ahead and just quickly color this little guy. And the first thing that you're going to want to grab is your Color Lifter Stampin' Right marker and your light smoky slate. And I did this trick on the other card that I just recently posted with this using the Spirited Snowman set. We're just going to add a little bit of shadow because nothing is really stark white, is it? There's always a little bit of shadow or shading somewhere on an image. So I'm taking this light smoky slate and I'm just putting it a little bit in from the left. I'm going to have my light source coming this way, so I'm going to have the area over here be the shaded part, or where the shadow is. And now with my color lifter, I can pull this out, erase that marker line, and then just sort of spread it a little bit out into the remainder of the image. And now, as you guys can see, we have this really nice shaded look. So it's not just stark white. Of course, you could absolutely leave him stark white. It is completely up to you. I'm just showing you some tips and tricks on how to use these alcohol markers in different ways if you are interested. Now notice again, I'm not going all the way over to the left, because if I do, when I push this marker with the color lifter, it's going to go right out of the line. So I'm leaving myself some room so that doesn't happen. However, if you do go out of the lines, which I have done so many times with these Stampin' Right markers because I'm not paying attention or my kid startles me, or whatever the case may be, this color lifter is amazing, and it just erases the color right off. Sometimes if you're using darker colors, like maybe a bright red, you might have to use the color lifter a couple different times to get the color removed if you go out of the lines, but generally speaking, it does it very quickly and usually on the first pass through. So now I'm just adding a little gray to his little head as well. And we're just gonna push this out and see how that marker line that I set down, you're probably thinking when I first started and just put a thick marker line down, what the heck is she doing, right? But with the magic of the color lifter marker, I cannot recommend this guy enough. This is definitely, make this your first Stampin' Right purchase, the color lifter. It's amazing. There's so many tips and tricks, and I've shared lots of videos already, and I'm gonna do so many more with the Stampin' Right markers. Don't worry, I haven't given up watercoloring. If that's something you prefer, I'm going to be doing plenty of videos on that as well, so don't worry about that. But this color lifter marker is just absolutely amazing. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you guys can see a little bit better. The shading on the snowman is very subtle, but as you can see, there's a little bit now of a shadow or shading or whatever you want to call it, the darkest part of the image over here. And we were able to achieve that by using that color lifter and our light smoky slate marker. So let's go ahead and get the rest of him colored super quick, nothing too fancy here. I am going to be using Bermuda Bay light and dark blends next. And I'm going to color his little ice skates. So actually these are just boots. I'm sorry, this is not the snowman. I'm not crazy. There's a snowman that's ice skating. I'm just working on the different image here. So we're gonna color his little boots first. And I am going to use, oops, I'm using the wrong end. It doesn't matter, by the way, which end you choose to use of the Stampin' Right marker. This end is a bit smaller. This end is our brush tip end. This is what I'm used to because I've been coloring with alcohol markers for years, long before Stampin' Up! Came out with them. And so I'm used to the thicker brush tip end. But if you want to get in small spaces and you don't have much practice, you can definitely use this end. When often in my videos, I'll open up the wrong end because I'm chit-chatting and I'm not paying attention. And then I'll close it and open the other one. That's not because that's the quote-unquote wrong end to use. I just prefer to use the brush tip end, if that makes sense. So I'm just coming in now with my dark Bermuda Bay, and I'm laying it down. Where you lay down your darkest marker is where you feel in your image is going to be the darkest, so where it's going to have the most shading. And now I'm just coming in with my light and just blending this, and I'm just doing this super quick and super easy so we can get on with this cute little card. I could spend hours coloring. I love doing it. It's so relaxing to me. And I have found that if you use the blends and go back over things more than once, you get even more dramatic transitions between your darkers and your lighter colors. But for today's purposes, I'm just going to do it once. I have several videos up for free here on YouTube that share how I, you know, more details on how to color with the blends if you're going for that nice shaded look. So there's lots of tips and tricks in those various videos. You can still see shading doing it the way that I'm doing it right now. So I'm just, for the purposes of the video, I'm going to do it really quickly today. I'm coming in now with my dark lovely lipstick just to put a hint of a shadow where you see there. And then I'm bringing in the light yellow lovely lipstick to sort of blend that out and create a little bit of a highlight. And then I'm just going to take the dark Bermuda Bay to do the little circles in the hat here. They're so small you're not going to see much shading on them anyway, so we're not going to worry about that. Now on this little ball at the end, I am going to do a little bit of a dark and then blend it out with the light, just because it's a slightly larger space. Okay, now for his scarf, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do dark Bermuda Bay on let's see, on each end, like so skip, so I have a little bit on the first little rectangle, then skip, and then a little bit on the second rectangle, skip, third rectangle, and so on, because we're going to have this be a multicolored scarf. So we're skipping every other space and putting down some dark Bermuda Bay. And then I'm going to come in with just a little bit of a light to get a little bit of a blending, but you could just use one color if you wanted to. You could always just use one color if you wanted to, and you're going to get beautiful results. So however you want to use these markers is perfectly appropriate and beautiful. I just like to show the different things that you can do with them, and show that you can use them like any other alcohol marker out there on the market. Now I'm coming in, I'm doing the same thing with the dark lovely lipstick, putting some dark down first, and then I'm going to go in with the light and blend that out. So there's just a tiniest little hint of shading here. Okay, now we're going to do his little stick arms and legs, and for that we're going to use our dark and light soft suede Stampin' Blends. So I'm going to grab the dark first. I always like to start with the dark and put down my shadow first. You can always start with your light image, with your light marker if you prefer. That's not a rule that you have to start with the dark. In fact, when I first started learning how to color with alcohol markers years ago, I did start with the light first because I wasn't exactly confident on where my shadows would be. So I would color the whole, area that I was working on of the image first in the light. And then I would go back and look at it again and say, okay, where's the shading going to be? Where's the highlight going to be? In other words, where are my lights and darks going to be? And then I would go back in with my darker, markers and work it out that way. So that is absolutely a fine way to go about doing things. And, we'll work with these markers. I've done it both ways. So I just am a little more confident now in where I want my shadows to be and where I want my lights and darks to be. So I just find that I save time by just going directly into that dark marker first. This is now dark pumpkin pie, and I'm going to come in with the light pumpkin pie just to give his little carrot nose some shadow. And then the very last thing is I'm just going to take dark basic black and give him some black buttons down the front here. And that's it. That was super simple. It looks like we used a whole bunch of markers, and I guess we did. We used all of these, but as you saw, it was really, really quick and easy thing to do. And we got a really cute little colored image in return. So now we can go ahead and set our cute little colored snowman aside. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit because now it's time to use that lovely buffalo check background image on our panel here of Coastal Cabana cardstock. So the best way that I can recommend on how to use any large background stamp, including this one, but any that you see in the holiday catalog as well as the annual catalog, is to use your stamping tool, your Stamparatus. I have found that I just get great coverage, plus if there's a little part of the image, the large image that perhaps I didn't get inked up all the way and it's a little splotchy, I can stamp it right again in the same exact spot, and you know, it won't move on me or anything like that. Now usually I would be using magnets to hold my paper in place in my Stamparatus, but I want this whole panel of paper, which by the way is cut to 5 by 3 3/4 inch. 3 3/4 by 5 inches. I want this whole panel covered in the buffalo check pattern. So what I'm going to do is I have some removable adhesive here. So it's not very strong at all. You could use regular snail if you didn't have the removable adhesive, and then just put your fingers on it to get some of the sticky up. And then I'm going to use my grid paper. As you can see, I've used this, I cut my grid paper into smaller sections to lay in my Stamparatus. And I'm just going to line it up so it's perfectly centered using the grid paper as my ruler, if you will. So I can see I have it lined up perfectly straight along this line, and this line, and this line, and this line. So it looks beautiful. Now, this is a red rubber cling stamp. All right, so that means we do not need this piece of foam in our Stamparatus. So this piece of foam is for extra cushioning for our photopolymer stamps. So when you're working with red rubber stamps in the Stamparatus, you can go ahead and remove this. All right, I think I kind of jarred my thing. That's when you put repositionable adhesive. It's not going to stay very good, so if you jar it with your hand, it's going to come off. Now I'm simply going to lay this large buffalo check stamp. As you can see, it's huge. It could stamp a whole front of a card panel if you wanted it to. I'm just going to line it up, and again, if my head's in, I'm sorry, I'm using my grid paper to help me make sure that I have this nice and lined up. There we go. That looks good. And now I'm just going to close the door of my Stamparatus, and this stamp will stick right to the door of the Stamparatus, so I can lift it back up, and voila, it is now on the door of the Stamparatus. It's kind of hard to get the whole thing in frame, but it's there. I'm going to use the stamp case now as a little holder for the door of the Stamparatus. And now I'm going to grab my Early Espresso ink pad. And so I really loved this brown combination with the Coastal Cabana color. I thought it looked really, really pretty. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the ink pad to the stamp, and I'm going to get this nice and inked up. And the thing with doing it this way, like I said at the beginning of this part of the video, is that if I don't get it perfectly stamped somewhere, I can just do it right over again because this paper isn't moving. All right, so let's go ahead and ink this down. You want to push really hard and apply even pressure all the way around, just like as if you were stamping it with your clear blocks. It's really no different. The only difference is that we're using the tool here, and so we can stamp it again in the same place without any repercussions if we need to. So I'm pushing down really hard. I'm going to lift the door up. And yeah, I did not get over here very well at all. As you can see, there's plenty of ink. I just didn't push it well myself. So I'm just going to ink the stamp up again. And it doesn't matter, you know, if you have to ink things up a few times, it's okay. That's what this tool is for. And it's very, very helpful. So I'm going to focus a lot on this end because that's the end my fingers didn't quite get to before. So you just want to push, 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 push hard. Keep pushing. Now lift the door. See how we did? Oh, that's beautiful. Look. Can you guys see that? I just see a little tiny splotch right there. So guess what? I'm going to do it a third time with, again, no repercussions because this paper is not moving. And that's why I love this stamping tool so much. Now, of course, if you had smaller pieces of paper or you just wanted this check pattern on a little portion of your cardstock, it's even easier because you can use your magnets that come with the Stamparatus. And then you know it's not moving. But I found that this repositionable adhesive works really well when I want the whole panel stamped. Okay, now I will take this off. See, it just peels right off, and show you how beautiful that turned out. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And imagine the different colors that you could use. I'm going to be using this background stamp a lot in my videos this winter and holiday season. There are so many color combinations, so many beautiful things that you can do with this background check. It's just an absolute must-have in my opinion. And I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that it doesn't retire and that I carry it over to next year too, because I could really use this for many years to come. Okay, I'm just using a baby wipe now to clean this stamp off really quick. And then we're gonna go ahead and put the stamp back. We can put our Stamparatus away. And now I'll just put the stamp back in its case really quick. All right, so that is just a quick tip there on how you can use your Stamparatus to get perfect positioning every time when you're dealing with those large background images. So with that Stamparatus tool, you'll never have a problem, I guarantee it, getting your images, your big background images inked up ever again. Okay, so now it's just a matter of putting this card together. So this is the finished card. And so as you can see, we have our little snowman, and he is popped on a tiny little scalloped circle of Bermuda Bay. I love Bermuda Bay and Coastal Cabana together, and I wanted to do some non-traditional colors for this card. So I went ahead and already pre-cut a scallop circle. This is from our Layering Circle Dies set, framelit set. So we're just going to adhere our little white stitch circle panel right to the front of our, oops, we don't want the repositionable adhesive this time. We want the real stuff. Right on top of our Bermuda Bay cardstock here. So we'll just stick this down, just center it here right on top of the scallop circle. There we go. All right, so that is all set. So we can set this aside for a moment. Now I went ahead and pre-cut our card base, which is a standard A2 size card base. So it's 11 inches by 4 1/4, scored at 5 1/2. I have a piece of Early Espresso cardstock here to mount on top of the card base. The Early Espresso is cut at 5 1/4, I'm sorry, 4 by 5 1/4. So let's put some adhesive on the back of this. And we'll go ahead and just simply center it on top of this card base here that again is Coastal Cabana. If I didn't say that, the card base is Coastal Cabana. And then the Early Espresso, which matches perfectly our stamped panel. So we're gonna go ahead now and put our buffalo checked stamped panel centered right on top of this card base panel here. Okay, so we'll just be centering this down right on top here. Like so. Okay, so that's most of our card done. What I'm going to do next is I already went ahead and sort of pre-cut our little sentiment just to save time because I was doing the coloring and the Stamparatus, so I didn't want this video to be too terribly long. So I decided to use this little sentiment here from this stamp set that says, "Your friendship warms my heart," and I stamped it in Bermuda Bay ink onto a little panel of Coastal Cabana cardstock. Then I used my banner triple punch to cut a little banner end on the side here, and then I mounted it on some silver glimmer paper and did the same thing with the triple banner punch. And so this we're going to lay on our card base with some dimensionals. First, I want to get this guy in place though, so I can figure out exactly how far up or down to have my sentiment. So we're going to flip our little snowman over and we're going to grab some dimensionals. Let me find mine here. Here we go. So we're going to grab some dimensionals. I think about 4 should do it for the back of this. And then we're going to go ahead and peel the backings off of our dimensionals here. And we're going to do some winding of silver metallic thread along the back of this panel. This is a technique that I like. It's not really a technique. It's a design choice, I guess you could say, that I like to do sometimes to just add some pretty texture and color and just a little bit of an extra to the front. And I especially like to do it on simpler card designs because it just, I find that it gives the card that extra little something. when it's more of a simple design like this one is today. So let me just wind back up very quickly what I just unraveled here and tape this back down, and then I'll show you what I mean. I've done this in lots of my videos, so if you are not new to my channel, you've seen this done before. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I'm so glad that you found me. As I said at the beginning of this video, I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and absolutely love my job. I love Stampin' Up! Products and sharing tips and techniques of card making and scrapbooking and mini album making with you guys. So all I'm doing is I'm just winding this silver metallic thread now behind this scallop circle, and I'm sticking it to the dimensionals that are on the back. Just kind of letting the metallic thread tell me which direction it wants to go as I'm winding, and I'm just making sure that it's peeking out of from behind the circle, so it can be seen from the front when we turn this circle back over. And you'll see what I mean in a moment when we turn it back over. I know it's a little hard to see this on camera, but hopefully between what you are able to see and what I'm saying, you'll be able to replicate this if you like. Not everybody likes, everybody has different design choices they like to make, and this might not be, something that you enjoy, and that's perfectly fine. You could absolutely leave this step off if you wanted to. I just personally love it. And we have all different colors of metallic threads. They're very inexpensive. You get a ton on a roll, and they come in rose and gold and silver and copper. So this is what it looks like, when you've wound it all along the back. Can you see that just peeking out there all around the back of the circle? Okay, so I'm just going to stick him down. And I have found also, by the way, that the thread is so thin that I don't have to put additional adhesive on top of the dimensionals. I have found that it sticks just fine. But if you are worried about that, you could take some mini glue dots and just stick them just to give those dimensionals extra sticky if you want to. I'm going to put him about right here. Okay, so now I can turn my sentiment panel over, and I'm going to grab some dimensionals for that, probably 3. So now I have a better idea of where my little snowman is going to go, so now I can figure out where exactly I want to place my sentiment. So let's go ahead and stick it, right about here. That looks good. Okay, so for a final step on this card, I decided to grab some of our thick burlap. This is called Burlap Ribbon, and it's 5/8 of an inch thick. It's really, really pretty. And I just thought it gave a nice little rustic feel to this card and sort of went with the buffalo check background as well. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off enough so I can do a little knot, and I'm just going to double knot it. I'm not going to tie a bow. I tried on my first card, and this is pretty thick burlap, and it just did not want to cooperate. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tie a knot, as you can see there, and then I'm going to put my finger here, and you just want to hold tight in the middle there so you can do a second little knot. Does that make sense? So now I have double knotted it. I cut way too much, so I'm gonna have to trim this, but I can save these pieces for other projects. And I just thought that that made a nice little touch to the card that wasn't, it didn't take away, I didn't think, in other words, from the card. I thought it just sort of added to it a little bit. So I'm gonna save these pieces, and then I'm going to grab a mini glue dot and just put it back behind the center of this knot here, just so that burlap will stay in place and won't go sliding all over the place. So I'm just using my scissors to help me, and now that knot is firmly down in place. For a finishing final touch, I decided to add some silver metallic pearls to kind of go along with the silver metallic thread and the silver glimmer paper. So I added 5 to this card. You could put them wherever you want. I just personally chose to put 3 in the upper left-hand corner, and then I put 2 in the bottom right-hand corner. But you could obviously put them wherever you want. There's no right or wrong way to where we put embellishments. There's just something fun to give our cards a little extra. And so that's it, guys. That is the super simple card. We did a couple techniques today that I hope you found helpful, and I hope that you enjoyed today's card. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. As always, I appreciate you so very much, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.